What's going on, YouTube vinyl community? It's Mikey Bananas, your old pal from the Grown Man Record Night program, here to do a Vinyl Tag 2021. Now, we've never done one of these vinyl tag things, but part of our New Year's resolution was to be a little more involved in the VC threads and stuff that floats around, contests and whatnot. So figured the vinyl tag would be a great place to start. So there's 3 of us, so we decided to bust up the questions 6, 7 apiece. So let's get started.
Hey, thanks, Mike. Yeah, let's get started. Steve Fever here for Grown Man Record Night. I'm going to start with the biggest discovery for me in 2020, and that has got to be the Dukes of Stratosphere. Dukes of Stratosphere. They put out 2 albums. They're actually not a band. They're not a real band. Well, they are and they're not. But who they are is Ecstasy. It's a spin-off band of Ecstasy. And I will be honest with you, I missed the boat on Ecstasy. My wife is a huge fan. And she knew that they had done this other project, and it was a psychedelic band. It's an homage to 1967 psychedelia. And so she ordered these 2 records from England. They came out in 2019. Fantastic. I listened, and it drew me towards listening to Ecstasy, and now I'm hooked on Ecstasy. And I thought it was an 80s band. They actually formed in 1972. So I highly recommend you check out these records, the Dukes of Stratosphere, 25 O'Clock, and Sonic Sunspot.
A quarantine buy. Now, when this whole COVID thing first came about, like many of us, the first thing in our hearts and minds were health and safety and well-being and all that jazz. The next thing my head kind of turned toward is like, what the hell's going to happen to all the record stores? Are they going to shut down? Like, they're not generating any revenue, so what's going to happen? I know, like a lot of states out there, here in North Carolina, we were on lockdown, so all this stuff was just shut down. One of our stores, Underdog Records, was doing a really cool thing where they were actually taking orders on the website, and you can not only pick it up at the store, but he was doing delivery, and it was only new records, no used inventory at this time. And I've been known to overlook new records and reissues and stuff in favor of used records that were in the store, because obviously they're not going to be around very long. So anyway, this was a prime opportunity for me to go through and kind of fill some gaps in my collection. And one of those was I recently turned on to the Misfits. And so I picked up this Misfits compilation. It's also called Collection or Collection 1. 20 tracks, features a lot of the prime hits from back in the day, and it's from what a lot of the hardcore Misfit guys said, it's a good starting point. And I'm getting more and more into the Misfits, and hopefully this is only the first of many. Definitely a great starting point, and it was something I kind of like. I want to support my man that runs a record store, so I'm going to the website, and I'm like, boom, Misfit. I've been streaming a lot of Misfits. I don't own any Misfits. This is my first one, so boom, this is a quarantine pickup delivered right to my door. An album I'll be looking for this year for sure is one I've been looking for about a year now. That's Minutemen's Double Nickels on the Dime. I have been searching for this thing. Local shop had the reissue for $25. All of a sudden that disappeared. I go to SST's website. Sorry, unavailable. I hope it's a product of COVID, and that's just why they're not pressing any right now. Hopefully they repress them. I'm not asking for an OG or something crazy, but the reissues are now, the modern reissues are floating around, are now like $50-$60 online. It's crazy. Just please press this again. I'll be happy to drop $25 on a reissue of this. That's the one I want to find this year.
A box set. I'm not sure if it's a box set or not, but it's in a box, so I'm calling it a box set. This is the Beatles' White Album. Came out in 2018. It was a 50-year anniversary of the White Album. It came out with the album plus the Escher demos, which are a bunch. I think there were 50 unreleased tracks included. And the great takeaway from this album, what's fantastic, there's a great, just to listen to demos, you would think it would be great, but it's really just fantastic to hear them laying it down for the first time or playing it together. What the greatest takeaway is the fact that I've always thought the White Album is when they just never could get along and they would come in different times to record their stuff and blah, 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 blah. But what's fantastic is you hear them and they're banter and they're having fun and they're sharing ideas, and it's just like, I wouldn't say business as usual, but it's certainly not what I had thought, how they were getting along at that time. So highly recommend it. The White Album and Escher demos. Concept album. Okay. As much as I like prog, You would think I'd pull a prog record, but no, I'm pulling a country record. There aren't many country concept albums that I know of, but the one that sticks out for me is one of my favorite records, and it's Willie Nelson's Redheaded Stranger album. It's a story about a guy who's on the run because he killed his wife and her lover, and it's really simply done. He just stripped back everything. He's playing acoustic guitar, and I think he plays piano. I think Willie plays piano and drums even. And took it to Columbia, and they were like, I don't know, it's so, they thought it was like demos, but he had creative control and put it out there, and it went gangbusters. So this is fantastic. It's the Redheaded Stranger, Willie Nelson, 1975. An LP where the band changes directions. What I decided to go with was Radiohead, and specifically Kid A. OK Computer was massive hit. They got more electronic, and they pulled on influences of electronics, classical jazz, and krautrock for the next couple albums, or few albums really. But there was actually there was enough material for 2 albums, so I'm going to include Kid A and Amnesiac. This is 2000, this is 2001. These go together. I don't take them apart, but I love, they're on 10-inch, so I have to get up every 6.5 minutes to change, 4 records. So that's fun.
All right, white label promo. Jay was supposed to do this, but he forgot, so I'm picking up the slack. Big shocker. So I picked out, I don't see a lot of people doing 45s on the vinyl tag thing, so I thought I'd pull it out. Plus, I've done a bunch of rock records, so I figured I'd do something a little funky. This is Paul Humphrey and his Kool-Aid Chemist. White label promo 45, 1969 Lizard Records. This the A side is Kool-Aid, and the B side is Detroit. Now this cat played with a lot of jazz folks coming up, like Wes Montgomery, John Coltrane, Les McCann, Kai Winding, Jimmy Smith, tons of them. As a band leader, he did a bunch of other stuff, but this stuff is super duper funky. It's drum break city, man. This probably even more the B side, Detroit. This is littered with drum breaks. It sounds like something that DJ Shadow or Cut Chemist or one of those guys would have used for some of their 45 sets. And if I had to guess, I would be willing to bet they did, or they have some of these and they have used them for some of that, because it's really funky, really drum breaky, and I have no idea where I got this. Old roommate cameraman may have passed it to me over the years. I don't know, but it stuck right out at me. I kind of grabbed the first white label that I saw. It was a 45 sitting close by, and I'm like, bet this shit is funky and it needs to be talked about. And I feel like I've done nothing but rock records, so boom.
All right, I'm Jay from the Grown Man Record Night Show. Check us out every Friday night, starting at 8:30. My compilation record I picked out is Hearing Aid from 1986. Any rock/metal fan out there from the 80s era should know of this. This was like the metal version of We Are the World. You can see the who's who that was on this record. Everybody from Quiet Riot to our old buddy Ted Nugent, everybody's favorite. So it's a cool band. It's, like I said, it's a compilation. They did the one track, the We Are the World type track, and it was for an all-star effort for famine relief. Then you got such bands as Accept on here, Love Accept, a Dio track, an old Hendrix track. This is just kind of a best of Who's Who, Kiss, Heaven's on Fire, Motorhead, Rush, Distant Early Warning, Scorpions, and some Y&T. I love Y&T, by the way, a very underrated band. So yeah, this is my compilation record that I most like from my collection.
So an album that tells a story. I chose Sleep's Dope Smoker. And not only is it an album that tells a story thematically, but also in the production of the album. These guys signed with London Records, and they worked on this for 4 years, and they came up with this hour-long song, and London Records was like, no way in hell are we touching this. And so it was kind of at a stalemate. An edited version came out much later called Jerusalem. The band wasn't necessarily very happy with it either. And then finally, the proper Dope Smoker release got released. And just a thundering mass of thick stoner doom riffs, repetition, the droning on and on of these same riffs really kind of puts you in a certain headspace. And the like thematically, the story they're telling, I mean, the first lines of the song, drop out of life with bong in hand, follow the smoke toward the rift-filled land. And the kind of the theme is there's these weed priests traveling across the desert in search of the rift-filled land. And while that may sound corny and just like pothead nonsense, these guys actually take the spiritual element of, you know, in the marijuana culture pretty damn serious. And so it's not meant to be goofy. It's just meant to be what it is, kind of a spiritual marijuana themed journey to find the rift-filled lands. But what a thundering, absolute monster, an opus of stoner doom metal rock. And this is essential. If you're into this genre at all, this kind of is your Bible. It's a starting point, and it is monotonous. It does drone on, but that's what makes it so great in its own way.
An album that I feel needs a pressing. Well, that would be Squirrel Nut Zipper's Perennial Favorites. My favorite Squirrel Nut Zippers album. Squirrel Nut Zippers are a swing band, revival swing jazz from Carborough, North Carolina. Love the band, great live band. I have their first album, which was reissued, I think, last year. It's The Inevitable. My second favorite album, their second album, is Hot. But their third album, 1998, is Perennial Favorites, and I'm excited. I haven't heard word, but I'm excited to think that it might be coming out. I can't see why not. It's so good.
A common album and an uncommon album. Man, I went right to this band when I thought of a common album, because you can find these records so cheap and so readily available, and they're so killer. Grand Funk Railroad. This is Closer to Home, which I think is their third record, and I could have picked any of these. This has got a great gatefold on it. But I could have picked any of these Grand Funk records because they all just jam so hard. And they're so easy to come by. All the way down to being able to find them in dollar bins, at least in my area, pretty much all the time. And at the most you'll pay $3, $4, $5 for decent copies of this stuff. And they all are just jamming ass records. And it's one of those things that goes to show you that no matter the price of a record, if it jams, baby, it jams. And no matter if it's common or not, if it jams, it jams. And you cannot go wrong with Grand Funk. For my money, Grand Funk, Mountain, it's two of the hardest rocking 70s bands ever. And I enjoy listening to this and all their records all the time. For an uncommon record, man, I chose this group called Tofat. This is the second release, appropriately titled 2. This is on Rare Earth Records. These guys, what a lot of people know about this band is some of the members went on to join Uriah Heep and Jethro Tull. And I ran into this. Me and Steve Fever were digging and pulled this out. And I just knew from this cover, I was like, this has got to be something. Surely this is something. So pulled this out, looked it up. Turns out it's like pretty damn uncommon, hard to find, a little pricey record. And besides that, though, blues, hard blues, psych from 1970. I think they had 2 records. The first one, they were both released right around the same year, like 1970. And really jams, man. Really hard blues, psychedelic kind of vibes out there. And never seen it, heard of it before I saw it that day that I picked it up. And I'm really stoked that I did. It's an uncommon record, and it's a banger.
Let's go, LETSGO. EP. For EP, I decided to go with Osric Tentacles' Sploosh. This is a Record Store Day release from 2014, I believe. Osric Tentacles is a British festival band, electronic, psychedelic, ska, just amazing, amazing band. And I love it. I didn't know anything about it when I bought this. I kind of bought it sight unseen. But I thought I might like it just by looking at that weird picture on the front. And it is great. It sent me wanting to buy all their stuff, but I have a few of their records, but I have to order them from England. But I highly recommend Odds with Tentacles if you ever get a chance.
Finally, for female bands, I got this record early on when I was started collecting vinyl. This is Girl School. All you metalheads out there in the VC would definitely know about Girl School. British band formed in the late 70s in the new wave of British heavy metal era. It was a male-dominated genre of music. And, you know, this was women from England breaking their way in to the genre, basically. This is 1982, Screaming Blue Murder. This was actually a thrift store. Not really a thrift store, but antique mall pickup for me. So it was a great find. It's in great shape. Mercury Records. It's kind of reminds you a lot of, or reminds me a lot of like Lita Ford, kind of that early 80s kind of metal stuff. But, you know, great record. If you're ever into early new wave of British heavy metal stuff, I would definitely check this out. Girl School, Screaming Blue Murder, 1982. For cover I love the most, I picked Kiss, Rock and Roll Over. This is a shitty copy. I'm sorry. You can see there. I love this artwork on this record, and this happens to be my favorite Kiss record of all time. It's not the best produced. A lot of the early stuff was kind of, by today's standards, very low production grade or low studio grade. And this is where it kind of picked up a little bit, but this one still isn't the best quality, but I think it's got the best pure rock and roll songs on it. A lot of people would argue Love Gun that followed this would maybe be in that same category. But this was kind of when the band kind of hit their stride and was making big moves. This has got Mr. Speed, Hard Luck Woman on it. Ladies Room, which is a fast-moving song, Calling Dr. Love. It's got a lot of Kiss hits on it, as you would say, a lot of staples they played over the years on tour and concert. And if you're an up-and-coming Kiss fan, anybody that's watching this that doesn't know much about early Kiss stuff, this is a great place to start. If you go too early, I mean, it might turn you off because it's very, very basic. And this is basic to an extent, but I think it's on a better level, though. So, and this is from 1970... All right, start over.
No.
I got that far and fucked it up. 1978. So, there you go. Kiss Rock and Roll Over for best cover. Album I've listened to the most. This is an album, I actually just picked this up a few years ago. This is a band I'd never heard of. Bought this at a local record store for like very little money. And I'm not trying to talk money here or anything. But it was very inexpensive. It's a band called Mount Carmel. What caught my attention was, if you were ever into baseball cards, the Topps 1972 design is what caught my eye. This is actually sitting on the wall. And this is a small blues band out of Columbus, Ohio. I did some research after I bought the record, obviously. Looked them up. Even contacted them at one point, but we won't get into that right now. This is called Real Women. This is from 2012. Great band. I urge you, please check these guys out if you haven't done so. If you watch the show on Friday night, Grown Men Record Night on Friday night, you've heard us talk about these guys. Phenomenal three-piece blues band from Columbus, Ohio. They got a very, at times, ZZ Top sound to them. Just like kind of slow and just grind it out, but this really soulful, comes from the heart. So this would be probably the record I'll listen to the most over 2020. Just kind of barricading your house and not leaving. You kind of put stuff on. You kind of find you're doing stuff regularly, and this was the one I found myself listening to the most in 2020.
An album I had to get an OG or original press of. The one that really sticks out in my head of this, it's probably the most appropriate, is Sabbath's Master's Reality. It took me a long time to find Volume 4, but even longer to find Master's Reality. And I could have went on Discogs or eBay and bought one, or at the time those, like, I think there were like the Rhino reissues were out, really readily available, fairly cheap, and I just didn't want to do it. Something about, I don't want Sabbath reissues. There's nothing wrong with that. If you've got them, that's whatever. I just didn't want them. I wanted, OG Sabbath records. And this is an original U.S. press. It's not a Vertigo or anything, but I'd waited. I literally waited 4 years to get this. And I knew it. Eventually, it just popped up in my shop. And it was like $8 or $10 or something. Nothing crazy. It's not in super shape. It's like a VG, maybe, And that's fine with me. That's fine. I wanted something about Sabbath. I just wanted the real ones. I just wanted the real ones. And another example of that is, this is an original press, but Outside Inside from Blue Cheer, one of my favorite bands. Legendarily recorded Inside and Outside because he got kicked out of the studio for playing too freaking loud, which is a kick-ass story. But passed on this one time because it was real expensive, and then Steve got it the same place I got Tofat, actually. Steve got it there, and I missed it, and I just waited. I could have went online, I could have bought it, and I just didn't. I just kept waiting, and it popped up. I got a good copy at a good price, and that made it feel even better to me, at least. And I think it's a second press, but it's not like I don't even know if there are modern reissues of this. I've never seen them around if there are. I waited years and years, 6-7 years, to find this record and get it. And I just stubbornly refused to go online and buy it. I refused. I don't know what it was. I just knew when I found it in the wild, it would make it feel so much better and so much more a part of my vinyl story. And that's why I waited, and I'm glad I did.
Actually, last album I purchased was actually just this week. I went to a local record store and found Van Halen Balance. Van Halen's one of probably my all-time favorite bands. I was going to say top 3, but they're probably my all-time favorite. Eddie was a legend. This is one of those records that if you're going to buy an OG copy, you're looking at like $200 to $300 easily. They only pressed them for like 1 year in '95, and I think they were actually European pressings, if I'm not mistaken. So they didn't circulate over here. And if you find them on Discogs or eBay or anywhere like that, you're going to pay it on the leg. And so I just broke down and bought a bootleg, and I didn't even know this really existed until I was at my local shop, like I talked about last week, and got talking to the owner up there, and he kind of gave me the whole scoop on it, and he was very transparent of what I'm buying. I knew what I was buying, but it sounds phenomenal. If you ever see this, pick this up. I mean, it's relatively cheap, for a new record, but it's good quality. Nice, actually. Let me take a second and pull this out for you. Show you the vinyl here. Nice orange vinyl on this. Very, very heavy orange vinyl. So, yeah, pick it up. If you like Van Halen, this is the poppier stuff, I will say. When they got to that 1986 with Sammy Hagar, 5150 era, they got real poppy. Eddie kind of wanted creative control of everything as far as what was getting released. And, I mean, this was hit after hit after hit. Everything after 86 was, for the most part. But fantastic record. I mean, you can never go wrong with Van Halen regardless of what it is. So even the Gary Cherone stuff you can never go wrong with. So this will be my most recent pickup, though. Van Halen Balance.
An album that they just don't get. I chose for this, and it could have been a lot of any of their records because it's mostly a band that people don't get. You either like them or you don't. You have no idea why anybody would dig it, and that's Sun. Some people refer to it as Sun O, but it's actually Sun, named after the amplifier manufacturer. It's actually the symbol is what you're seeing there. This is Canon. This is a 2015 release from them. 7th record, I believe, in their discography. This is a record store day. That's the first thing I ever bought that was a record store day record. And if you don't know Sun, it's kind of drone metal, you would say. I just had this discussion on Metal Theologian, and the way that I describe Sun to people that don't know, it's ambient music for people that are guitar tone snobs, especially like metal. If you're a metal guitar tone snob, this is your ambient music. It's just droning. And it just has this certain, when it hits this certain frequency, it does something to my body. I mean, you can feel it kind of moving you in a very weird trance kind of way, not to be corny. But some people just are like, what the hell is this? Turn this off. I used to listen to it in the office, and Fever always think that the mowers were outside because of this low hum. It sounds like the mowers are outside, like mowing. But I dig it. It's not a record for all the time, but when it's right for it, baby, it's right. And I love Sun, and I need to pick up some more, actually. So, a punk record. Now, my initial thoughts on doing this was probably do something like my favorite punk is Black Flag, and I thought about just going right down the middle with it, because that's probably what I would listen to the most. But I thought maybe some other people are showing Black Flag or no Black Flag, and maybe I'll show something folks don't know about. It's not going to be like so far out there you never heard of them. I'm not that cat. My punk collection's not that crazy, but do have some good stuff. One of those, 1981 release from a band called the Wipers, Youth of America. The Pacific Northwest band, I think they're out of Oregon. And Greg Sage is kind of the mastermind behind this. A lot of people would say this would be proto-grunge or post-punk, because it's not hardcore. It's not, it's not the Ramones. You know what I mean? It's not Black Flag. It's not Circle Jerks. It's got its own little thing going on, and the songs are not 2 minutes long. Like the title track, Youth of America, which is what sold me on this band, is like 10 minutes long. That's the most anti-punk thing ever. But I know Youth of America from the Melvins cover on their album Electro Retard, 2001, I think theirs was. And it was one of my favorite Melvin songs until somebody was like, dude, you realize that's a Wipers cover, right? And I'm like, Wipers, the hell? And looked it up and then heard the Wipers cover. And I'm like, damn, I may like this version even better than the Melvins. And I'm a huge Melvins fan. But the whole album is just killer. It's really killer, and it's different. Definitely punk vibes, but it's got, it's a little different. That's all I can just say. Give it a listen if you've not heard it before, and definitely listen. The riff of Youth of America is one of the killer like punk riffs, man. I really dig that.
So what's my favorite reissue of 2020? Without a doubt, it's got to be They Might Be Giants Flood. They reissued it, music on vinyl, 2,500 copies on an icy mint, beautiful vinyl release. Love this record. I love this record. There's another band my wife turned me on to, John Flansburgh and John Linnell, two Johns, out of Brooklyn, I think. Great, weird, intellectual band, I guess you would say. I'm just stoked to finally get a copy of this, and I'm going to play the heck out of it. And thanks a lot, guys.
Well, there's our Vinyl Tag 2021. We hope to be more involved with the VC this year and do some more of these threads and contests and stuff, and hopefully more stuff to come. Hope you guys will join us on Friday nights where we do Grown Man Record Night live on Twitch, live on YouTube, and we have a big old blast over there. And we hope to see you soon, and thank you for taking the time to watch the video.